Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is Biblical Insights. In our video today, we're going to be talking about the resurrection of Jesus. Specifically, was he really resurrected? Did Jesus rise from the dead? Did the grave open and he came out alive after 3 days? Lots of people believe he did. And a lot of people don't believe that happened. And many people are kind of in between. They wonder, I don't know, really? That's kind of an odd thing. I don't know, resurrection from the dead, did that really happen? I don't know. So I think it's an important topic because so much of the gospel, the idea of God saving people from their sins, is related to the resurrection. It hinges on the resurrection. So it's something that we need to talk about. So we're going to do that in this video. But before we do, let me take just a moment and ask you to help us out by subscribing to our channel. It'd be really helpful if you would do that. There's a little button out there somewhere, red or green or something, that says subscribe. If you would click that, doesn't cost you anything, nobody bothers you, but it helps our video move up through the algorithm so that more people have an opportunity to see it. And that's, after all, what we really want to do here. So if you can, please like the video and subscribe to it and that sort of thing. You can share it, on other media platforms, and that would be very helpful to us. Okay, thank you. So we're going to be reading in a moment from the Simplified New Testament Study Bible. This is my translation and commentary on the New Testament. And the passage that we're going to look at is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18. We're going to read verses 31 through 33. Okay, Luke is writing this, and he says, "At that time, Jesus took his 12 apostles aside and said to them, 'We are on our way to Jerusalem, and everything written about me in the scriptures will be fulfilled. I will be given into the hands of the Romans. They will humiliate me, insult me, spit on me, beat me, and finally kill me. But after 3 days, I will come back to life.'" Jesus prophesied his own resurrection. Jesus knew what was going to happen. Nothing that happened when he got to Jerusalem in what is often referred to as Passion Week, nothing that happened there surprised him. He knew exactly what was going to happen before he got there, told his apostles, here's how it's going to work out, here's what's going to happen. And that included telling them that he was going to come back to life, that he was going to be raised from the dead. Now, the question, really quite simply, is, did that actually happen? Was he raised from the dead? Did he come back to life? And when people ask that, what they're saying is there any proof of that? Is there any proof of that? Well, we're going to talk about a few things along those lines. I think ultimately, and we have to be honest about it, ultimately, this is a matter of faith. It comes down to whether you believe or not. But I think it's important to understand that in every aspect of Christianity, every aspect of our religion, God provides us with evidence and with a good, rational foundation for believing the things that he asks us to believe. It is not simply, look, I told you it happened, so, believe it or not, I don't care. He doesn't have that kind of an attitude. And there really are good reasons to believe the things that we believe. So let's spend a few moments talking about some of those. Where would we start in general when we're talking about the resurrection and whether or not it happened? And for some people, it's a question of whether or not that sort of thing can even happen. Well, if you believe in God, in other words, if you're not an atheist, if you believe in God, then it's likely that you also believe in a creator God, that God created the universe and everything in it. The planet Earth and everything on the earth, the people and all. And in truth, that is what the Bible claims, isn't it? In the very first chapter of the very first book, Genesis, it says, "In the beginning, God, and it talks about his creating the universe, creating the world, and as you read on down through the chapter, finally he creates people in his image. Now, if God can do all of that, is it too hard to imagine that he could bring someone back to life after they've died? I mean, really, come on. If he can create humans and life, then when someone has died, could he not bring them back to life? See, that's not hard at all. When you consider all the other things God does, raising somebody from the dead just isn't that big a deal, okay? That's a simple thing. Just because we don't know how to do it doesn't mean it can't be done. Think in terms of a newborn baby or a very young child, maybe 9 months old, 10, a year old, 18 months old, okay? A very young child. If they think in terms of being able to build and fly a plane, well, first, they can't even think in terms of building and flying a plane, but we can. But that 18-month-old child or 2-year-old child, make the kid any age you want, okay? But a little child, they can't think in terms of building and flying a plane. But if they live long enough and they gain the skills necessary, then it's theoretically possible. I mean, people build planes. I've seen homemade planes. With the college where I used to teach, we had an aviation program, and in that part of the school, they had a plane that was actually built by a guy who lived in the area, built his own plane that actually flew. Okay, I mean, think about it. The very first planes that were built by guys who were experimenting. The Wright brothers. They built a plane and they flew a plane. Okay, so an 18-month-old child can't build and fly a plane, but a grown adult who studied it can do that. Okay, well, that's sort of an analogy about the ability to resurrect the dead. We, as finite human beings who can't do stuff like raise the dead, in comparison to God, we're just little children. Okay, we don't know how to do that sort of stuff. You see, but God is the eternally existing mind who knows what can be known and who can do anything that can be done, right? And so he knows how to raise the dead, and he has the power to do that. That's not hard to buy. That's not hard to believe that. Okay, so the very first thing that we can think of in regards to the resurrection is God certainly has the power to raise the dead if he wants to do that. Okay. Second, we can think in terms of the Bible in general. Now, this is not a video that is designed to prove that the Bible is the Word of God or God's communication to human beings, however you want to word it. That's not what I'm here to do today. But that is an important idea. How do we know that the Bible is not just some book that was written by a bunch of old Jewish guys a long time ago, but is a book that was inspired by God? Well, the simplest answer to that is fulfilled prophecy. The Bible is filled with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of prophecies about all sorts of things, and they all came true. Some of the prophecies were made hundreds of years before the events that they prophesied actually occurred, but they all did. And they're all the sorts of things that nobody could manipulate and make sure, you got everything in place so that this prophecy would be fulfilled. See, there weren't those sorts of things. They weren't the kind of things that you could manipulate. So there were dozens and dozens and dozens of prophecies that came true, which suggests, demonstrates, proves, if you like that word better, that this book, the Bible, isn't just a book written by a bunch of old dead Jewish guys. This is a book that was written by those old dead Jewish guys who were being guided by God, who were delivering God's message to human beings. And it is a true message, right? And the fulfilled prophecies demonstrate that it is a true message. Okay, so the Bible is a book that tells us about the resurrection of Jesus. It prophesied that Jesus would be killed and then that he would be raised from the dead. And you can either believe that or not, But the question is there any reason to believe that? Of course there is. There's the God and the power he has to do that sort of thing. And then there's all of the fulfilled prophecies in the Bible, which demonstrate that the Bible is a divinely inspired book, and it is true, and therefore, sorry, we had a little bit of a problem with our equipment. The camera stopped filming, so I apologize. Let me pick up where I was. What I was saying is that we know the Bible is true, okay? And if some people choose not to believe that's up to them. They can believe or they cannot believe. But there's all sorts of evidence that you can look at that says this is not just a book written by human beings, because human beings can't predict the future. Right, see, and it's not just one or two predictions. It's dozens and dozens and dozens of prophecies about all sorts of different things that couldn't be manipulated to bring them about. The Bible is true, and it's not a book that's filled with a bunch of lies, written by a bunch of liars. Okay, the Bible was written by godly men who were writing what God was asking them to write. And they believed it so thoroughly that they were willing to die for the message. If they were just lying, okay, they wouldn't have been willing to die for that lie. Wouldn't have been worth it. And if they were just delusional, then they wouldn't have been able to accomplish the things they accomplished. They changed the world with this message of Christianity, and all of the miracles that demonstrate the presence and the power of God, all of these things are there. If you choose to deny that and say, I don't believe that, well, okay, that's up to you. You get to do that if you want to, but then, we'll see, right? We'll see. But if you are a person that believes in God, and you'd like to believe in the resurrection, then let me tell you, there's really good reasons to believe it. Let's talk about some of them. One of them, and to me, probably one of the most important reasons to believe, is all of the eyewitness accounts. Okay? In other words, I didn't personally see it because I didn't live 2,000 years ago, but I have the accounts in the Gospels of many people who did see it, and they talk about it, and it's an eyewitness account. And some people would look at that and go, well, yeah, but that's just what somebody else said they saw. Yeah, but I mean, that's how we live our lives, right? Our entire legal system is set up to where we accept evidence from eyewitnesses who saw what happened. And they can go to court and testify as to what they saw. And we put so much stock in that a person's life, or sometimes their freedom, hangs in the balance. If there are eyewitnesses that says, I saw that person do thus and so, that person could be convicted of a crime and go to prison. And in some states, depending on what the crime was, they might be executed. They might lose their life. Based on what? Based on eyewitness accounts. People who say, I saw what happened, and I'm telling you, this is what happened. Well, we have lots of that in relationship to Jesus. As you read through the Gospels, all four of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they give us all sorts of people who saw the resurrection, who talked to Jesus after he was raised from the dead. And some of those people were the women who went very early to the tomb to finish preparing Jesus' body for burial. Because even though Jesus said, I'm going to rise from the dead, they didn't understand, and they didn't quite get it. All they knew is that he died, that Friday afternoon, and it was horrible, and they were sad, and his body was taken down hurriedly from the cross and put in a grave. It wasn't properly prepared. So Sunday morning, after the Sabbath, Sunday morning, very early, they went down there to finish preparing Jesus' body for burial. And when they got there, he wasn't there. He had already risen from the dead. And then those women went back and told the apostles. And so the apostles go and check it out. And so these are guys that had spent a lot of time with Jesus, probably about 3 years with Jesus, traveling with him, living with him, moving around. They knew the guy intimately. And he was gone. He wasn't there. And then he appeared to them, and he said, hey, guys, I told you I was going to rise, didn't I? Didn't I tell you? I'd be handed over to the Romans, and I would be crucified. I would die, but on the third day I would raise. And then they're going, oh, I'm sorry, but we didn't get that. We didn't understand that's what you meant. And he said, yeah, that's what I meant. And Jesus traveled about and interacted with lots of people. There's a story in Luke about two guys on the road to a city called Emmaus, and Jesus appeared to them and talked with them, and they realized, hey, this is Jesus. He's not dead. He's alive. He's alive. Paul makes reference to the fact that at one time Jesus appeared and visited with a group of over 500 people. Okay, that's a lot of eyewitnesses, over 500 people. In fact, there are more people who can witness to the fact that Jesus rose from the dead than there are who can witness to the fact that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at the Ford Theater by John Wilkes Booth. Okay, we actually have more evidence for the resurrection of Jesus than we have for the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people don't think about the fact that when we read history and we're reading accounts of people who said, well, this happened and these people were there and then this happened and we saw this and whatever, that's exactly the same kind of stuff we have for the resurrection of Jesus. Now, if you believe that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth at the Ford Theater, if you believe that because there are people who were there and who saw it and who said, hey, this is what happened, okay, then why wouldn't you believe the witnesses who talk about the resurrection of Jesus? I mean, is it because someone being raised from the dead is impossible? Well, clearly it's not. If God can create the universe and create human beings, he could certainly raise one of them from the dead, right? And if you believe the Bible, during Jesus' ministry, he raised several people from the dead. A widow had lost her son. He raised her son from the dead. A father had lost his daughter. He raised her from the dead. His own friend Lazarus had died. He raised Lazarus from the dead. Okay, Jesus raised several people from the dead. Now, they lived again and then died again, and that's slightly different because when Jesus rose from the grave, he then ascended back to heaven. He didn't die again. But resurrection is still resurrection. If Jesus resurrected people from the dead, why couldn't God raise him from the dead? See, it doesn't make any sense to say, well, I believe in God, and I believe God had the power to create the universe, but I'm not sure about the resurrection. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Of course he can raise people from the dead. For God, that would be a pretty simple thing to do. You see, that would not be hard to do. So there's all kinds of evidence. Okay, there's just all kinds of evidence that the resurrection of Jesus occurred. It is not something that's impossible. It is not something that only an idiot would believe. It is not something that people lied about. These people weren't lying. These people believed this. They weren't delusional, believing a lie themselves, because if they were delusional, they wouldn't have been able to change the world. They wouldn't have been able to go do all of the amazing things they did and literally fool everybody who became deluded along with them. You see, this isn't a lie, and this isn't a delusion. This is the truth. It's what really happened. Jesus rose from the dead. And you know why it's important? Because one day I'm going to get old and die. Half of that's already done, right? I'm already old. Okay, and at some point in the future, not the near future, I hope, but at some point in the future, I'm going to die. Is that the end? Is that the way life works? You're born, you live, you die, and then that's it, you're gone, you cease to exist? Well, that's nonsense. That isn't the case. Okay? The real you, your body dies, but the real you, the inner self of you, the part of you that thinks and wills and and anticipates and decides and all of those things. The real you that makes you different from every other person, okay, that lives forever. Your mind, your intellect, your will. Some people call it spirit, soul, whatever. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I call it mind, okay? That will live forever. You will always exist. Once you come into existence, you will exist forever. And what the New Testament teaches is that when Jesus comes again, everybody who's ever died is going to come back to life. Every single person is going to be resurrected. And those who have had a relationship with God when they were alive will continue that relationship with God. Those who did not have a relationship with him because they rejected God's offer of grace and mercy will not have a relationship with God. And that's the difference. That's really heaven and hell, either in a relationship with God or not. And whether you have that is entirely up to you. Jesus was resurrected, and those who are part of his family will be resurrected to continue and enjoy their relationship with God. When I die, it's not the end of anything. It's just a transition into another phase of life. And everybody's going to experience that. How that transition goes is going to be up to you. Take God up on his offer. Accept his grace and mercy. I hope you found this helpful and interesting somewhat today. It depends on where you are in your thinking about the resurrection and all. I hope this was helpful. As always, read your Bible, pray, go to church, and may God bless.